Thank you, Mr. President and members. I rise, very sadly, to ask that we adjourn in memory of David Aroner, a friend, a decades-long labor leader, and also the spouse of my very close friend and mentor, former Assemblymember Dion Aroner, who is with us on the floor today. David Aroner was a passionate advocate and an excellent organizer for social justice. For decades, he was a leader in the Bay Area labor movement. He was the former executive director of SEIU 535 and a member of SEIU International's executive board. He died in Berkeley just a few weeks ago at the age of 82. He was born in Chicago and grew up there, and his life was marked by a strong sense of family and the Jewish faith. And it was in these early years that his passion for activism and advocacy took root. In the early 60s, he attended the University of Michigan just as the civil rights movement was getting started and active and heating up. And while in college, he traveled to Montgomery, Alabama with the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, where they organized and assisted direct action challenges to segregation, racism, and political exclusion. In Montgomery, David was arrested and jailed with other SNCC activists, which culminated in a hunger strike while he was in jail. He graduated from Michigan with a master's in social work, and he continued his journey as a community organizer, having been trained and inspired by the well-known activist Saul Alinsky, who some of you may not recall, but maybe you recall his book, Rules for Radicals. In 1966, David moved to Berkeley and soon became active in the East Bay labor scene. He began working for SEIU Local 535, where he focused on organizing social workers, nurses, and mental health workers across the state. Soon after, David and Dion met. Dion was then also active in East Bay labor circles. The two fell in love, married, and had 2 children, Josh and Danielle. David eventually served as the executive director of 535, and he grew the membership by 300%. He was appointed to the SEIU International Executive Board by then-President John Sweeney, who was later president of AFL-CIO. David was a trade unionist through and through. He walked picket lines for any number of unions over the years, and he was so committed to the purpose of the strike or whatever other activity he was involved in a direct action activity, he would hang in until arrested. And he landed himself in jail numerous times in the name of justice and in the search for equity and respect for not only our workers, but also for our sisters and brothers of color and others. Our mutual friend and former Assemblymember Tom Bates described David as a person who truly believed in unions and their collective power. And Tom's spouse, my good friend and former state senator, Lonnie Hancock, called David a great, innovative union leader and a visionary. For the 25th anniversary of Local 535, David developed a cultural event that featured Harlem Renaissance artist Jacob Lawrence and folk singer Utah Phillips. He loved all types of music, but especially music from the 20s, 30s, and 40s. But he also loved classical music, and he and Dion were very strong patrons of the Oakland Symphony. But he had a special affinity for Paul Robeson, the legendary actor, singer, and political activist. And in 1998, David organized a Bay Area committee to celebrate the 100th birthday of Paul Robeson. But more recently, and this was, not that many years before he died, David approached then Oakland Symphony director Michael Morgan to commission an original composition just focused on Robeson. Sadly, Morgan himself passed away before the premiere of that piece, titled Here I Stand, and that piece was performed by the Oakland Symphony earlier this year. And that performance was David's last outing before he died, which, by the way, that piece, Here I Stand, will also be premiered next year at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. So Dion, who is on the floor with us today, said of the Oakland Symphony performance, "It was fabulous. It was a beautiful performance. David loved it, and it was really the last time that he went out of the house." Throughout his life, David was also a foodie. As you can imagine, being a longtime Berkeley resident, he enjoyed cooking, and he and Dion were fixtures in our vibrant restaurant scene. They also loved to travel and were avid participants in the house exchange, in that program where you allow visitors to stay in your house, and you are then able to stay in their house, whether you're going to Italy, France, Germany, you name it. And so they went on many long trips and did those house exchanges. But David's real pastime was fishing. And when his children were younger, they often went camping and fishing, taking long road trips to Utah, the Grand Tetons, Colorado, and he would search for the best camping spot where he could fish. So in addition to Dion and his children, Danielle and Josh, David Aroner is survived by 3 siblings and 4 grandchildren. He will be greatly missed by his family, his many friends in Berkeley and beyond. His impact on our communities and the communities he served will be remembered, as will his tireless dedication to creating a more just and equitable society. So I ask you to adjourn in David Aroner's memory.
Thank you. Our deepest Senate condolences to this amazing leader, labor leader, activist, and we welcome former legislature here today with us, and we ask that you bring the name forward so he can be properly memorialized. Thank you.